Hello, heroes, and welcome back to the Guild Hall. Today, we're going to be tapping into the raw elemental chaos of the Lightning Stormbringer in Ascension WoW. If you're looking for massive AoE bursts, electrifying visuals, and a playstyle that zaps everything in your path, this is the build for you. We'll break down everything you need to do to dominate dungeons, raids, and possibly even some PvP. Let's spark things up and ride the storm. Alright. Let's get started with our spec. We are doing the Lightning Stormbringer. Now, this is of the current patch. We are going to cover the left-hand side and then the right-hand side of the trees first. The points that I have will work primarily for PvE. There will be a couple points that we would have to shift around for PvP. If you guys are interested in seeing that, let me know down in the comments below, and we will definitely do a build that is more directed towards PvP. So starting with the left-hand side, primarily we had to use a lot of points that just don't mean anything to us, but our two big focuses were going to be for Call Lightning. So as you can see, we wanted to get Storm Chaser, Storm Sorcery, and then Thunder King as our three big points here for Call Lightning. Our other big skill that we were trying to boost for this build is called Arm of Thorum. And as you'll notice, none of our skills here boost Arm of Thorum. So as long as we made sure that we got Storm Chaser, Storm Sorcery, and Thunder King, the rest of these points are kind of just there to assist us a little bit more. So starting at the top, we did 1 point in the Cloudburst. This one's good to get early on, as it will allow you to push creatures away from you, which just makes it easier for you to take enemies out or to help you in PvP keep people off of you. We got Torrential Wrath. The only reason why we got this was because we needed it in order to advance the tree anyway. But this is a good one if you are wanting to bounce between it and Call Lightning to do some pretty heavy damage to targets. And we start off with Conjure Storm anyway with this build. Conjured Storm is arguably one of the best skills for AoE that we have. And just to show you, there's quite a bit of... let's see... Conjure Storm, there we go. There's actually quite a bit of stuff that we picked up that specifically boosts Conjure Storm, right? So Conjure Storm itself, then we picked up Conjuration Mastery, so it reduces the cooldown of Conjure Storm by 5 seconds. Then in the second row, we also got Altered Course, which Discharge now increases our movement speed. That just helps us early game get around a little bit more. In dungeons, we can pop it, not only to get our mana back, but to help us keep up with some of the faster classes. Studious, casting Shock now generates an additional 5 static. The point of this whole build is we want to get as much static as fast as possible so we can proc our big spells. We grabbed Spellstorm Mastery, so it reduces the cost of all of our spells and skills by 10%, which is amazing. We picked up Arcane Lightning, increases your nature and arcane damage dealt by 4%, which boosts our damage, because that's all we're doing is arcane and nature damage. Storm Chaser, again, this was one of those big ones we needed for Call Lightning. Dealing damage with Crackle now reduces the cast time of your Call Lightning by 15% for 10 seconds, stacking 2 times. I highly recommend alternating between using a Crackle and Call Lightning when Thorum is on cooldown. We picked up Aviana's Blessing, increases our critical strike rating and haste rating by 2%. Both of those are super, super effective. When we get to the stat page, I'll explain a little bit more, but getting haste and crit strike is what this build needs. Body of Lightning, this is another really good one that helps us just push out some more damage. Infuse an ally with lightning for 17 seconds, regenerating 1% of their max mana every 1 second. We can cast it on ourselves. While active, damage dealt now deals an additional 177 nature damage up to 5 enemies. So as much AoE damage as we're doing, it increases our AoE damage. We picked up Executioner. Your critical strikes with Crackle and Forked Lightning make your Electrocute within 10 seconds usable, regardless of the target's health. Electrocute is your it's your execute ability, quite literally. So we picked that up. We also picked up Invigorating Winds. Envelop an ally in Invigorating Winds, granting them immunity, silence, and interrupting effects. Dramatically reduces their threat. Reduces all damage taken by 20% for 8 seconds. This does not apply to tanks, the threat reduction. So you can pop this on a tank who's taking too much damage if you need to. Or you know they're about to take a heavy hit. This can actually keep the healer from having to overspend mana. Shocked on life, shocked to life. Shock now heals you for 10% of the initial damage dealt. This is great because we're going to be throwing a lot of shock. So getting some health back helps the healer again not use mana on us because we're self-healing. Drop down, grabbed Storm Sorcery. Again, this is a big one for our Call Lightning, but dealing damage with Call Lightning and Torrential Wrath now increases the critical strike chance of all spells and attacks against the target by 3%. So typically what you really want to do, because this lasts for 10 seconds, and you can get back up to 100 really fast. So what I try to do, and we'll cover this when I get to my rotation, but I try to use Crackle, then use Call Lightning, then use Shock to get back up to 100, then pop Thorum so that it's getting not only all of its bonuses, which we'll cover in this tree here in a minute, but it also is getting 3%, or we have a higher chance to do a crit strike with all spells by 3%. So everything is just hitting harder with this particular spell. Storm Cloaked, we get a shield in case we need it. So that's good. It also has a 60% chance to resist Dispel mechanics in PvP, so keep that in mind too. Storm Channeling, your damaging critical strikes now restore 5% of your missing mana over 4 seconds. This is amazing because every time we crit, and we will be critting a lot, we're going to just continuously get more mana every time. Thunder Ward, this is another shield. 2-minute cooldown in case yourself an electrical shield protecting you from all physical attacks and spells for 6 seconds. Cannot generate static for the duration. So if you're not worried about building static, you just need to not take damage. Pop this, take the reduction, and then awesome. Resurgence, while you are below 35% health, dealing direct damage to an enemy will heal you for 15% of your maximum health over 3 seconds. This actually does couple with Shock's heal for us. Whirlpool. Summon a Whirlpool in a 10-yard radius. This is more of a PvP skill than it is a PvE skill, but this has its applications in PvE. But dungeons go so fast that it's kind of a moot point to use it, but you can if you really want. Summon a Whirlpool in a 10-yard radius, pulling all nearby enemies in and slowing their movement by 60% for 5 seconds. After 3 seconds... Excuse me. After 3 seconds, enemies in the area are knocked up into the air. Surge Overload. Your Crackle now affects an additional enemy. So now when we use Crackle, which is this right here, we're now hitting multiple targets with it instead of just one. So that's a plus. Come over here. Eye of the Tornado. Your damage critical strikes now refund 5 static. So now when we crit strike, we're getting more static, which means we can use more abilities, which means we can crit more, which means it's just an ever-going loop, right? Then we've got Lingering Lightning. Increases the duration of your Storm Cloak by 2 seconds, and Conjure Storm and Body of Lightning by 5 seconds. So the two that we use a lot are going to be the Conjure Storm and Body of Lightning. This actually increases both of those by 5 seconds. So Conjure Storm lasts longer, Body of Lightning lasts longer, so that all that damage is just applying to everything. Then we have Thunder King. This is one of our boss spells that we have. Transform into the Thunder King for 20 seconds, allowing Call Lightning to strike 3 enemies and increase movement speed by 35%. Generates 5 static every 1 second. While active, critical strikes deal bonus spell storm damage, scaling with spell power, and grants Raging Storm. Raging Storm increases haste by 3%, stacking 10 times, so you can get 30% spell haste if you get that many crits. That is the entire left side of the tree. Now we're going to go on to the right-hand side of the tree. So the things that you start off with automatically is going to be the Stormbringer, damage dealt by shock and call lightning, have a 55% chance to refresh the charge of crackle and forked lightning. That's just a permanent thing that you get just by being lightning. First skill is Arm of Thorum. This thing hits like a truck when you get this thing built out. We picked up Forked Lightning. This just gives us 2 charges of an AoE ability. We don't really use it all that much anymore. I can technically take that off our bar. But it allows you to get 5 static per enemy. So if you're hitting 5 enemies, that's 25 static. But it shares a cooldown with Crackle, so it's the only reason why I don't use it that much. Superconductor increases damage of your Arm of Thorum by an additional 1% per static depleted. This is why we want this thing to be at 100 before we proc it. Come down one more, we get your Arm of Thorum now always critical strikes. So we no longer have to worry about critical strike. For this, we want critical strike damage instead of chance, because this will always crit strike now. We also got Fulmination, Call Lightning, and Torrential Wrath now have 15% increased chance to critically strike against targets affected by your Crackle. Again, Crackle increases its damage, and now it's increasing its critical strike against the same target. So just more damage to do crit. Volt. This thing you can throw on an enemy. It fuse lightning into an enemy for 12 seconds, dealing 428 nature damage over 12 seconds, and slowing their movement speed by 40%. Can only affect one target at a time, generates 5 static per tick. So it sits on there for 12 seconds, gives you 5 static, that's 60 static at the end of the 12 seconds. If you don't do anything else, generate static. It slows them down by 40%, so good in PvP as well. And it just helps do nature damage over time, so it's just free damage at that point. We went with Electrifying Aura here. Increases your spell critical strike chance of party and raid members by 3%, just because I was trying to be more helpful and keep that kind of a buff going. But you could do this, which is reduce the duration of interrupt and silence effects against you by 20%, and increasing your critical strike chance by 3%. This is PvP, this is PvE, okay? We went with Thunder Grip for this one here. Damage dealt by Forked Lightning, Crackle, and Torrential Wrath now prevent enemies from fleeing and increasing their movement speed above normal movement speed for 8 seconds. I did that one just because it made it to where things couldn't run away from me very fast. But we could also go with your Forked Lightning now affects 3 additional enemies. So instead of it being 5, it's actually 8 enemies. And deals increased damage, but again, we're not using Forked Lightning all that much, so I didn't go with it. Electric Energy is the next one. Increases the damage and critical damage, or increases the damage and critical damage of your Call Lightning by 15%. So just overall boost of damage for Call Lightning. Amping Up increases all damage you deal to enemies affected by your Vault by 10% for 12 seconds. Your Vault and Amping Up are now refreshed whenever the target is critically struck by your Call Lightning or Electrocute. So if you put Volt on somebody and you get the Amp Up effect, right? The Amping Up, which is what this one is. Anytime we critically strike something with Call Lightning or Electrocute, it refreshes the whole thing. So there we go. Born from Thunder reduces the cast time of Shock by 0.2 seconds, and Electrocutioner now causes Electrocute to trigger no cooldown. So if we get Electrocutioner because we did Call Lightning, or Crackle, giving us a free shot of Electrocute, then it doesn't proc a cooldown. So that's always good there too. Dropping down again, we've got Titan Storm. Casting Call Lightning now reduces the remaining cooldown of Arm of Thorum by 5 seconds. This is just so we can get this big boy up faster, right? Invoking Storms increases spell power scaling of Call Lightning and Torrential Wrath by 10% so that they do more damage. We picked up Crackling Thunder. Grants you an additional 10% chance to refresh a charge of Crackle and Forked Lightning when you deal damage with Shock, Electrocute, and Call Lightning. Go down again. Wicked Storms. Enemies affected by your Conjure Storm take 10% increased nature damage from you. So you throw you throw Conjure Storm on them, then you can throw Arm of Thorum after you've thrown Call Lightning. Like, the whole thing just gets crazy real fast. Jolt increases critical strike chance of your Electrocute by 25%, which really helps. Voltic Burst increases the critical damage of your shock by 15%, and its critical strike chance by 3%. Dark Skies, when your direct damage spells fail to critically strike, your critical strike chance is increased by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This just helps us get more crits out. Living Coil increases your critical strike chance of Body of Lightning by 10%. Lightning Cage, this is another one for your boss. Cage yourself in lightning, generating 50 static, but reducing your movement speed by 75% for 15 seconds. For the duration, you deal 20% increased damage with Shock, Call, Lightning, and Crackle, and their range is increased by 15 yards. Next one is Thunder Wave. Damage dealt by your Conjure Storm has a 10% chance to transform your next Conjure Storm into Thunder Wave for 10 seconds. Thunder Wave. Bring lightning down upon an enemy and up to 8 enemies within 8 yards of them, dealing 503 arcane damage and granting an I didn't mean to bump that, sorry. Granting Electrocutioner. Scales with modifiers to call lightning. Electrocutioner, your critical strikes with Crackle, Forked Lightning, make your next Electrocute within 10 seconds, usable regardless of the target's health. This one here, one little thing I will put in here is I've noticed that this is a 10% chance per target being hit by Thunder Wave. Not just a 10% chance because I cast Thunder Wave. Conjure Storm. Conjure Storm hits more than one target. Each one of the targets is giving you a 10% chance to morph it. So this thing morphs a lot in an AoE fight. Here we went with Violent Monsoon. Makes your Conjure Storm instant, and damage dealt by it now applies Violent Monsoon to enemies caught in the storm for 4 seconds. Movement speed reduced by 50%. Or you could have done Stormy Days. Critical strikes with your Forked Lightning now reduce the cooldown of your Conjure Storm by 2 seconds. Again, we're not using Forked Lightning, so I'd rather have the instant for it and the speed reduction. Thunder Shocker, damage dealt by Call Lightning, now has a 30% chance to deal an additional 20% of its damage dealt to a target as arcane damage. So this makes Call Lightning do way more damage. Then we went down, grabbed Unbound Lightning. Your direct damaging spells now have a 50% chance to strike the target with an additional bolt of lightning, dealing 237 damage. And then we got Thorum's Gift. Your Arm of Thorum leaves a patch of disintegrated earth under the enemy, dealing an additional damage equal to 30% of its initial damage dealt to all enemies over 6 seconds, healing you and equal to 100% of the damage dealt. So it's just a fast way to get big health back towards us, right? So let's look at my rotation. So typically what I do, and here, let me waste all this. Okay. So what I typically do is I will start off with doing some shocks, right? Then when I'm, there we go, got one of those. I'm going to throw, oop, that's the wrong one. With my macro that I built, we're going to throw that AoE, and look at that, immediately got that. Throw that, we're at 100. So we're going to go Crackle, Call Lightning, Electrocute, Crackle, back up to 100, we're going to do an Arm of Thorum. We can throw another Thunder Wave. So as you can see, I mean, it's literally, I mean, look at the numbers we're throwing. And now we're waiting for Arm of Thorum to come down. So I just bounce between doing Crackle, Storm Lightning, another Crackle, Call Lightning. That's back up. And the whole time, I just keep, anytime something's on cooldown, I'm popping it, right? That is the whole thing here. So that is this build in a nutshell. Just that little bit of a demonstration there. Conjure Storm is our #1 attack for AoE. Thunder Wave, which is the next one, because it's the morph of Conjure Storm. Thorum's Gift, we only threw that. How many times did we actually proc that? The hits doesn't count on that. Oh, that's Thorum's Gift. That's what's left over. Arm of Thorum, we only did twice. And look how much damage its after effect did. 36k. So as you can see, like that's what we do. That's everything we try to proc here. And of course, I've got people. Is this boss one over here not being targeted? Okay. That's the execute dummy. All right. I'll do a quick. Reset all that. There we go. I'll do a quick one for bosses, right? So if we're getting ready to do a boss, what I'm going to do, again, is I'm going to start off, before I start doing anything, I'm going to try to get up as much static as I can real fast as the boss fight starts, right? Get that up. And then right before I start proccing everything else, I proc all of our big stuff. And then we just go back into our normal rotation. And it really just, it's that easy. Oop, don't want to waste that. I thought it was at 100. Right? And then there's another Arm of Thorum. And like, I don't even have perfect stats for all that. Right? But even then, I mean, we did 104k damage to that single target. So as you can see, this isn't really a single target build. I'm sure I could get my rotation a little bit cleaner and be doing way more damage on bosses. But still, I mean, Shock was our #1 damage, Arm of Thorum, Call Lightning, Unbound Lightning. So we've got it all there. Now, just to kind of go over stats here, our primary attribute definitely is going to be intelligence. That gives us more mana, but more importantly, it gives us spell critical hit. That's what we want to get up, right? For spells specifically, we need hit rating. So, like, if I was targeting this guy right here, I'm not going to hit it all that often because my hit rating is only 10%. And for raid bosses, we need to be 17% to even, to never miss, right? Bonus damage is always good to have. However, it's not something you should be trying to focus solely on. It will come with the gear. The ones that you want to really be looking for is going to be hit rating, haste rating, and crit chance. These three right here are your primary attributes to look for on your gear. Okay? And the reason for that is haste rating. Haste rating cools down how fast we're casting Shock or how fast we cast Call Lightning, right? Anything we can do to get these numbers down better, we want, right? Crit chance, we want to try and get this up to about 25%, which means 1 out of every 4 attacks will be a guaranteed critical. And that's the cap that you can get is 25%. So it's rough getting up there, unless they've changed the cap. But as far as I know, it's still 25%. And then hit rating, like I said, if we're doing raids, we definitely want to be closer to that 17% versus the 10%. So our gear still has a little bit of ways to go. Like, we still need more crit, we still need more haste, and we still need more hit rating. So there's that. And I'm not even in best of slot gear. Like, yeah, my PvE power is up there, but my gear's only at a 59.73. So I've got quite a bit of ways to go. So there you go. That is my Lightning Stormbringer. And that wraps up our dive into the Lightning Stormbringer. Whether you're running dungeons or frying foes in PvP, this build is sure to bring the thunder. If you found this guide helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more builds and class breakdowns, and share your own Stormbringer tips in the comments below. Thanks for watching, heroes, and as always, I'll see you out there, guildies.